The world knows him as a ruler in waiting, a prince whose footsteps echo through marble halls and golden deserts, but what they don't see is the heartbeat behind the crown. When a crown prince falls in love, even destiny trembles, unsure whether to bless or curse the path he chooses. Sheikh Hamdan, known to the world as Fazza, was never afraid of duty. Yet love, pure, unguarded love, made even the strongest walls around his heart begin to crumble. Beneath the weight of royal expectations, his soul whispered her name in silence, defying every command written by power, lineage, and tradition. It began like poetry, soft, unplanned, and dangerous in its simplicity. She entered his life not with grandeur but with grace, not with titles but with truth. In her eyes, he found a peace that no throne could give. Her laughter melted the noise of the palace, and her silence spoke louder than all the royal decrees ever signed. Fazza had seen the world bow before him, but before her, he found himself bowing in surrender, not to her beauty alone, but to the purity of what his heart felt. For the first time, the prince wasn't leading, he was following the rhythm of love itself. Every secret meeting beneath the Dubai moon felt like stealing from destiny. The stars became witnesses to their vows, unspoken promises exchanged through glances and the soft touch of fingers brushing in the dark. In her presence, Fazza wasn't the heir to Dubai, he was just a man discovering what it meant to truly live. She didn't fall in love with his crown, she fell for the soul beneath it. That was her greatest sin, and his greatest salvation. But love, in a palace, is never simple. It dances between shadows and whispers. The walls listen, and loyalty becomes a test. Fazza's love story became a hidden war between heart and heritage. The elders spoke of alliances, of dynasties, of what a future ruler must uphold. Yet in the chambers of his heart, he was already crowned by love, not duty. He wrote poems not for the world but for her, verses soaked in devotion and fear. Every word was a rebellion, every heartbeat a risk. There were nights when he would stand by the balcony overlooking the glittering city, whispering her name to the wind. The desert listened. The sea echoed it back. He wondered if love was a crime when it felt like destiny's own design. She had given him something no title could offer, humanity. And he, in turn, gave her a love that defied the laws of royalty. In her smile, he found freedom, in her absence, he found poetry. Rumors began to stir. The world's eyes are sharp when it comes to princes. Some called it a fairy tale, others a forbidden dream. But love cannot live in silence forever. There came a day when the truth stood at his doorstep. Duty demanded he let her go. His advisors spoke of legacy, his family of responsibility, and his heart of love. He stood torn between the empire and the one woman who had shown him how to feel beyond titles. Destiny trembled that day, unsure whether to protect the prince or the man within him. When he walked away from her, it wasn't weakness, it was a storm of sacrifice. Her tears didn't fall alone, the skies wept too. Every step away felt like betraying his own soul. The desert winds howled that night, carrying her scent through the corridors of his memory. The poet in him wrote of heartbreak, but the ruler in him remained silent. They called him strong, little did they know strength was just another word for suffering in silence. Years passed, and the world saw Fazza smile in public, recite verses, ride horses across golden dunes, and lead his people with grace. But beneath that composure lay a heart still writing her name in the dust of time. The poems became his confessions. I loved her not for what she was, but for how she made me forget who I was. His words touched millions, yet few knew they were written for one. Fate has a way of circling back.
Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, Fazza still found himself drawn to the same spot, that silent ridge of sand where his soul had first learned to whisper her name. The desert hadn't forgotten, it breathed her essence through the cool winds, reminding him that true love never vanishes, it merely changes form. He stood there, not as a prince, not as a poet, but as a man stripped of titles, carrying the soft ache of something eternal. The stars seemed to move slower in his presence, as if even the universe respected his unspoken grief. For all his power, he could not command her return, and for all his love, he could not forget. He often wondered if she ever thought of him when the night grew heavy and the world slept. Did she remember the verses he wrote for her, the promises whispered against the endless horizon? He imagined her somewhere beneath the same sky, perhaps gazing at the moon they once shared, holding on to the same ache that lived in him. Love, he realized, wasn't about possession or proximity, it was about the invisible thread that connects two souls even when they walk different paths. That thread still bound them, delicate but unbreakable, a divine connection beyond the reach of royal decree or destiny's will. His poetry became his confession to the universe. Each verse carried a fragment of her laughter hidden in metaphors, her eyes painted between the syllables. Those who read his poems thought he was writing of beauty, nature, and dreams, but she knew better. Every word was a letter he could never send, every rhyme a piece of his heart disguised for the world. His people admired his artistry, they didn't know it was built from the ruins of his love. For in every kingdom, there are two kinds of rulers, those who lead with their minds and those who reign through the pain of their hearts. Fazza was both. As time passed, his responsibilities grew heavier, but his heart remained loyal to the memory of her. When he looked out over Dubai, its towers piercing the heavens, its lights shimmering like scattered diamonds, he felt both pride and longing. He had given his life to his people, but she had taken his heart to another realm. Love had taught him something no crown ever could, that power may rule lands, but only love can rule eternity. And in the silence of his chambers, he would still find her, not in presence, but in spirit, lingering between breaths of poetry and prayer. There came a night when he was asked about love during a gathering of poets and leaders. The hall was silent as he smiled softly and said, "When love is real, it never asks for recognition. It lives quietly, faithfully, even in absence." The crowd applauded, not realizing those words were meant for her, the woman who had taught him the true meaning of love's endurance. His eyes glistened that night, not from sorrow, but from gratitude. She had not left him empty, she had left him eternal. Love had turned him into something greater than a prince, it had made him a believer in the unseen. Years later, when the world celebrated his leadership, and his words inspired generations, he still returned to the desert. That was where the story had begun, and perhaps, where it would one day end.